Well, hello, everybody. Welcome in. This is The Simple Truth. And as you can see, it is me, Jermaine, but I am not yet alone again. I have yet another guest that has come into The Simple Truth, and I am pleased and proud to have one of my brothers from the Straightway Ministry, the Straightway of Texas, to be more specific, Houston, Texas. And this is Brother Mitchel. For those who are a part of Straightway Ministry, you are very familiar with Brother Mitchel. If you have never seen his face, I know when he begins to talk, you'll be able to definitely recognize his voice. But we want to welcome him in today to the portion of Simple Truth that we call Saints Speak. And it's a way of being able to get to know the saints that are scattered abroad here in the United States. And we just hold a nice conversation and just get to know the saints because, you know, it's one thing to be able to talk about living for the Most High, but it's a whole different thing to actually do it. But when we have the opportunity to speak to other saints that are doing it and are making it happen, they have their ups, they have their downs, they have their struggles, but yet they are still living for Yah and doing what He expects us to do, which is mainly to follow His laws, His statutes, and His commandments, and live and be that example that he expects for all of us to be. So I want to give Brother Mitchel an opportunity to just introduce himself, and then we'll get into the actual interview that we have here. Turn it over to you, Brother Mitchel.
All right, shalom, Israel. Straightway family, this is Mitchel, Paulo down here in Houston, Texas. Been living in Houston pretty much all my life. Actually, a suburb of Houston, east of Houston, and called Baytown. But really haven't moved around much. Came to the faith. I would say I was made whole in the faith last year once I came in contact with Straightway. Prior to coming in contact with Straightway, you know, I had left Christianity some years prior, before 08, 09, somewhere around there. Steadily growing, learning what was true, what was false, what were lies, what was right, what was wrong, what not. Discovering all the fallacies of Christianity and other religions around the world. And over time, I just began to grow. And I was actually following wrong teachings, wrong teachers, self-proclaimed rabbis, teachers, Black Hebrew Israelite groups. But it never really sat well with me. So I continued to seek and seek and seek. And you know, I was part of a group called the Nazarenes. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And I followed them for some time. And then, you know, over time, you know, came across Pastor Dow when I was out looking for some fuel, when I was having arguments with some Christians some time ago, and ran into Pastor Dow. And ever since then, I will listen to him for entertainment purposes. And then over time, you know, he made one video called The Truth, and I didn't like it, you know, but he was speaking the truth. And some more time had went on, and for some reason, I mean, even though I didn't like what I heard, I continued to listen. Something within me, spirit, was leading me to come back to the computer. I subscribed to him, and I continued to just listen and learn. I went in his archives and whatnot, and I overall liked what he had to say. And he made a video called The Safe Sinner, and that's what got me. You know, feeling that I was the saved sinner. You know, that's where we grew up believing, and what we have learned through our indoctrination through various denominations throughout Christianity. So that's how I got in contact with Pastor Dow. That's when I contacted him and actually showed up and paid a visit along with my brother Greg, and that's all she wrote, man. And I've been supporting it ever since, and I've been pushing real hard, man, just to grow stronger and stronger at this, grow a tighter bond with the saints down here in Texas, and also, you know, have a closer bond with the Straightway community in Tennessee. So that's my introduction. I'm 27 years old.
On fire,
living in Houston.
On fire for the Most High, for sure.
Yeah, man. You know, especially being under the ministry that we're under, man. I mean, you always, you know, you feel that you're there. You can't get too comfortable. You know, right. You have to always continue to push. I mean, we talked about that last night over our Skype, and we try to, or at least, I have ideas and others have ideas. We all implement them, and if they sound good, and we just anything we can do to get closer to the Most High, we do. So you kind of seen it last night. That was just a little bit of what we do, come together, and it's to strengthen our unit down here.
Right.
So every people, we're reading through a book, and we'll read a few chapters, and everyone has something to say on it.
Right.
Each chapter that we go over, and not only that, then everyone they're pushed and pressed to read for themselves whatever various scripture that they can throughout the week. But we just choose to pick out certain letters or epistles or books to read out of, for our group. And I think that will help us build up our relationship and grow closer. And at least if we don't talk to each other not one time throughout the week, at least after Shabbat at sundown at 8 p.m. we get together and we do that. And at least we see each other's faces, we speak with one another, and we exchange, what we learn from the messages of the day and whatnot, or what we learn throughout the week, or whatever the case may be. So, it's something that will help us.
And although it was my first time,
that's kind of where we're at now.
And although it was my first time being a part of the Skype group that you had last night, I mean, we've all interacted separately before, but it was a great opportunity, and I want to thank you. I appreciate having the opportunity. I'll definitely be there again next Shabbat. But the one thing I wanted, one of the main things, that a lot of people are interested in, you brought up some great points, and, I love how we can kind of bounce off of each other and how this is going to work. There were some points that I didn't know, even from our discussions, that it's going to help me to guide in what I'd like to ask you. But one of the main things that I saw, and it really pushed me to want to speak with you, and I told you when I reached out to you and told you that I wanted to talk to you, was the fact that, number one, I have to really and truly say it is an honor and a pleasure to be able to see someone with your youth, although you have maturity, but with your youth and the hunger that you have of seeking the truth. And so the question I have for you is, in a little more detail, I mean, what was it that caused you to, begin to make that search for the truth?
Well, let's say I was 15 years old, and about 15 years old or so. And my brother and I, we were young, and growing up, we had a cousin of ours that we looked up to. He had passed away, and me and my brother from that point on never cared about holidays for some reason or another. And then let's fast forward up to about 2008 or 9, and we were constantly, we had, like I told you last night, we were indoctrinated growing up in Catholicism. And in between that time, we would go visit our cousins with Pentecostal. Then my mother realized we wasn't getting anything out of being Catholic, so she switched to Baptist. So we followed her there. And then there was just so much confusion as a child, as a teenager. And there was so many lies, and there was so many indoctrinations that we had that we didn't even believe half the things in this book. And then we ended up being non-denomination. And so it was always a never-ending thing. So it just, I guess it's more at an accelerated rate simply because we're in that last day.
Okay.
And I believe all the prophecies just coming to fruition, and we're bringing it home, and I think this generation, I think that's the generation that the Messiah was speaking of, that we should not pass till we see these things, till we see the Son of Man. So, and I believe that's part of it, but for us, it was more so, why do we do this? Why do we do that? Then, life has its issues, so I was kind of going through something tough around 2007 or so, and I began to seek him even harder. And certain things just didn't seem right to me. I wanted to be convicted. I wanted to be corrected. I wanted when I'm reading through the scriptures, I was seeing how the prophets and whatnot were speaking, and these pastors nowadays were not speaking this way. So I wanted to be convicted. I wanted to actually be on the right path, and I didn't feel like going to church, but I was on the right path. I was hearing prosperity gospels. I felt like it didn't even help that I went to church. So that's what made me want to push even harder. And, I had a female friend told me, hey, we need to follow these commandments. Okay, cool. I would think that we didn't have to, but I had an ear. I was like, okay, cool. I'll check it out. And I began to follow certain things without even knowing about it.
Mm.
I started because she told me. And it's amazing because she's not even in the way now. She told me about it, and it's crazy. We would go out to eat, and she would order like shrimp and pork and whatnot, and say, and I wouldn't get any of it. She'd say, "Oh, it's good. You don't even know for sure, and I know for sure, and I'm not doing it,
Right.
and you're." And so it's crazy the way it works, how that all came about. But yeah, so that's what made me drive home for it, because I wasn't getting fed how Pastor Dow says. I wasn't getting fed.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't. I was living it, and I was trying to begin to tell people what's the difference between your everyday average moral man living out there. What's the difference between them and a Christian? And when you think about it, they couldn't say anything. It's like, well, there's no difference. The only difference is one proclaims that they believe in Jesus and the other one doesn't. That's about it.
Right. Right.
So, but that made me drive for it, and then I began to read. For me, I always wanted to read books that no one, or epistles and letters that no one's reading. So in the churches that I went to, no one would read like James. No one read First John through Third John. No one would read really First Peter through, Second Peter, Third Peter, whatever. No one was reading these books. No one was reading Hebrews. No one was reading these books. No one was reading First Corinthians when it talks about the spiritual gifts and stuff. So
Right.
these type of things I gravitated towards seeking for my truth, and also I was reading up on the lost books, and why is it that there's so many other books out there. I even went through a stage where I began to say, man, I don't even think God real. I began to,
Mm-hmm.
So I went through my phases of seeking it, feeling like I was all alone, thinking the way I was thinking. And to being like, man, there are people out there who think the way I think.
Okay. Okay.
So that's what drove me. That's what drove me. That's what pushed me. So and when I found Pastor Dow, and well, even prior to, I began to see other people believe the way I did, but I wasn't in the way until I met Straight Way.
Okay.
Prior then, I was getting half truths, and everyone was missing the power.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
They had the steak, but they didn't have the sizzle.
They had the history. Yeah, they had the history down, and they had who we were down, and they had all this other stuff down, and the Torah we got followed. They had that, but that was about it.
Right.
And I even believe there was a small amount of time that I actually believed that all white folks was Edomites, until I began to read for myself. So I mean, I had to break the chains of all these false teachings, all from Catholicism and other Christian denominations I was in, and then the Hebrew Israelite teachings that I was in by these so-called rabbis and teachers. And then I had to break the black Hebrew Israelite teaching, which
Okay.
I was only in for a very short amount of time.
Well, can you expound upon that? Because that's a question that I have when I have people. I have myself, kind of looked in on some of the things that they teach and they talk about, and what I found, and then you can elaborate from there. But what I found is kind of like what you just mentioned. They had the historical aspect of things locked in. Okay, they had that, but when it came to, for me, the application, it's like, like Jesus spoke about, it's one thing to know the letter of the law, but then to also have a spirit of the law. They were almost there. To me, I really believe, and I know I'll probably get people that hit me with comments because, they're all watching our videos, Pastor Dow's, mine, many others. But the thing is, I'll probably get hit when I say this, but they remind me, from reading the word, they remind me of modern day scribes and Pharisees, where they can tell you everything that is the letter of the law, or how to pronounce a name, so forth. But yet when it comes to their showing forth of what they're actually doing, you really, as Pastor says, we need to become fruit inspectors. And when you inspect that fruit, it doesn't seem to have any. So I pass it over to you to kind of elaborate on that, because you were maybe a little closer than even I was.
Well, from just what I had seen, whenever I first got to the Hebrew Israelite teaching, through all these various teachers, like I said, one thing I realized right off the bat was that they were very angry, upset about the plight of the so-called African American male, or the black man in America. So they would first of all teach a lot of anger and hate. And I'll be honest, I gravitated towards it because they were showing me things that I've never seen before. I had heard in the past several people say that I was a Hebrew or whatever the case may be, or they would try to enlighten me on, hey, your name is a slave name, stuff like that, whatever the case may be. So the history aspect is what I gravitated towards, but along came the whole racist kind of connotations that they would and comments that they would make, and that's where I separated myself at, simply because that from just what I had read, it didn't match up with what they were saying. But they were just bitter. It's what it is. It's like they're bitter against what has happened to us through our transgressions. But then I realized when they would show me the scripture, say for instance, like the best one would be Deuteronomy 28. They showed me Deuteronomy 28 too, and that's what actually got me going on. I can see it now, how the curses match up with us and whatnot.
Right.
Leviticus 26 sort of case. But what they're missing within that is in the very beginning when he said, you will diligently hearken unto the words of his voice, and to follow his commandments and statutes which he set before you this day. And they're totally missing that, to be upset at ourselves. They don't think of when the Most High told Moses, behold, I've seen these people, they're stiff necked. They don't look at that. They don't look at, you're stubborn, you're hard-headed,
Right.
that you need to constantly humble yourself.
Right.
I mean, they say they humble themselves, but I don't see it. And I got in a lot of arguments with a few of them about that. But I don't push the envelope too much with them because it's almost as if they have blinders on.
Right.
And they don't want to see that. They want to say, well, it's the white man's fault, it's the white man's fault, that or whatever. And, they're trying to get, like how Pastor Dow was saying, is that a lot of them are illiterate. And I kind of see what it means now because, they speak English, they're born, raised in this country under this pagan system. And all I know is English, and they sit here and they're trying to tell you exactly what all these letters mean about the Hebrew or whatever, man. You got to watch your fruit, like you were just saying, and the only way you know that you're following him if you're keeping his commandments, if you're walking after him, I don't want to misquote, but in the Bible, and I don't really know exactly where it is, but I believe, what does he put above his name? His word. His word is forever. So he puts his word above all things. And how does in the book of Psalms, how David is going about speaking about not taking his name in vain, but he talked about sinning and that taking his name in vain.
Right.
And you can go on and on about the whole name thing, and they feel like, they go up and down, and most of them believe Yahweh is the name, and they will push that to the end of time. And so they're very stubborn, very hard-headed, stiff-necked. The Bible ain't never lied, man. The books never lie. Our Tanakh, the scriptures never lie, man. They're just hard-headed, and they just don't want to come to the truth, and they don't want anyone to partake in the covenant. They don't want it. They don't want it for the so-called white man. They don't want it for an Arab. They don't want it for a Hispanic or anything. They don't want it for anyone. They want to exclude everyone except for us.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's what they want, and they don't want anybody else to partake in it. But they're just bitter and very angry, and it's gut wrenching whenever you realize and come to knowledge of what your history is. And that you don't know who you are, and that, how your name was taken from you, how your culture was taken from you, how everything was given to you, and how you were left dumbed down, and, how scientifically, how they've taken crafty counsel against my people, Psalms 83. So, all these things. So, when I think of that, I understand, how they can be that bitter and that angry, but it doesn't match up with what the word says.
Right. Now, I heard you mention just a moment ago, and this is kind of one of those surprise things to be able to take the conversation somewhere I didn't expect for it to go. But I heard you make a mention that you, for a while there, you followed the Nazarene faith.
Yeah,
and I'm very familiar with the Nazarene faith because I have a very good friend of mine that's what he grew up in all of his life. And I'm at a point now where, we're still good friends, but yet, we have an opportunity to differ on the interpretation or the way we look at the word. So my question to you is, what do you see the difference is from when you were following the Nazarene faith to where you are now? What would you see as far as, the maybe the divide between the two?
Well, just like all the other ones that separate straightway truth from the rest of them, no power. They don't concentrate on the power whatsoever at all. They concentrate on the Torah, and which is there's nothing wrong with that. We need that, but they concentrate on it, and they also have a sacred name. At least the one that I was following, um, they would say Yahuwah and uh, Yahushua or Yahusha.
Hmm.
And that's the name that you would call him by. And then they broke down, the name Jesus, and you're actually saying Dios or Zeus, and they just the way that they would word certain things like that. And then also they have their own doctrine on who's the Antichrist and stuff like that. So I mean, they have their own little spin and flavor on it. They call themselves Nazarenes simply because that Paul was called the leader of the sect of Nazarenes, and through history they understand that whenever the Rome went about killing a lot of folks, that they were killing Judaizers, which was part of the people they were killing called Judaizers. See, these people were all called these names, and you know this. It's just like they were called Christians. They were
Right.
called Christians. They were called that sect of Nazarenes. They were called Judaizers. They were called many names. So they just chose to go with the Nazarenes. And at this time, I still didn't know about anything about a black Jesus or black folk being a Hebrew Israelite. I was just following it. And I looked at Yeshua, whatever flavor they were putting on it, they want to call them, or Yahuwah. I was still looking at them as those people over there.
Okay.
And I was still putting a prophecy towards the people over there. So, see, I was trying to follow the Torah prior to me even knowing what I know now. So, and that's what they're missing too. They don't know who's who either. They don't know who the people are. They don't know they don't know how to divide who is who.
Well,
Um,
well, what would you say, Brother Mitchell, to those people? Because I know you've come across this, and I come across it. But you have that mindset out there that is basically, well, it doesn't really, this name situation. When it comes to, and I'm speaking from their point of view when I
yeah,
say these things. These are things that we've come across. Well, Jesus was all about love. The Old Testament doesn't mean anything anymore, and as long as we follow the fruits of the Spirit, and we do things like Jesus. However, I want to interject this. They say they do things like Jesus. One of the main things Jesus did was spoke of the prophets, and he followed the commandments, but they ignore that because that's done away with, because Jesus is coming, just totally put a big eraser to everything. And now Jesus, is I like to call with Christians, I say you should call Jesus not the Messiah, but you should call him the great eraser, because he erased everything that came before him and wrote something new. However, there's no documentation of anything ever being rewritten after he came. But they want to say this, and they just want to believe that, hey, Jesus loves everyone, and as long as you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus Christ is Lord, everything is going to be fine, and we're all going to be welcomed into the family of God, or as we say, the Most High, or Yah. So when you hear those kind of things, what is your take? What is your feeling about that?
well, I don't even. I mean, I don't like it. I don't. I understand where they come from because y'all brought up under that, and it took someone saying something. It took someone. Nothing ever felt right to me, so I never gravitated towards that. But at the same time, I felt like there's something more. There's something missing. But it took someone just dropping a seed. That's what it took, and it takes someone like us dropping a seed. So I say little small things to, like how Pastor Doc say, stimulate the minds. So that's kind of what I work on doing when I hear something like that, like my mother or friends or family or something like that. And and the only those who have the ears to hear will hear. And so that's kind of how I feel. And I look at it like this: somebody got to go to hell. Not all of us gonna make it. I had that. I understand that. So I don't crawl with spilled milk, man. And my brother tell you, I'm the first person, at least here in Texas, that I'll let somebody be dumb. You know, like First Corinthians say, if a man be ignorant, let him be ignorant. I'm one of the first ones who will allow that to happen. And if you tug and resist and resist and resist, I don't carry on.
I
I'll
got
leave it
you.
alone. But I'll drop little snippets. Say, for instance, when they talk to me like that, I'll be like, well, what do you think about God's Ten Commandments? Do they still stand? They'll agree with you that they're still good. Then they'll turn around and say, uh, but Jesus, but Jesus, but Jesus, and then once I kill them with that, with the words of Jesus,
Right.
if thou love me, follow my commandments, Matthew 5,
But
really all of chapter 5.
but
If
wait a
you,
minute. Hold on, brother Mitchell. I got to interject there. I got to be that dissenting voice. But the only two commandments that mean anything is to love God and honor thy neighbor as thyself. Those are the
yeah,
two greatest commandments.
yeah, well, and they always, well, not all of them come with that because some of them don't know it.
Right.
But when
Right.
they do come with it, I'll ask them. I'll say, well, what about the Ten Commandments? And I actually spoke to a Catholic, and he told me that the first three go to God and the last seven go to man. I said, well, you do have a Catholic Bible, don't you? He said, yes. I said, don't you realize that the rest of the world, the KJV, NIV, NLT, whatever flavor you want to throw on it, do
Right.
you know that the Catholics have cut the 10th commandment in half and replace half of it at the second commandment with the graven images. He didn't know that, but I was just telling him, the first, well, we know this, the first four go to the Most High, the last six go to man.
Right.
So,
Right.
but if you love that God with all thy heart and all thy soul, would you not go to what he said?
Yeah.
Would you not go
Yeah.
to exactly the things that, I mean, if you go through the scriptures, you find this forever, everlasting.
Yeah.
And if he does not change, everlasting,
Right.
forever. Once again, he's saying these things everlasting, forever. This will be perpetual covenant forever.
Right.
Throughout your journey, this is memorial, memorial, memorial. Well, it's not for us. And see, this is where it always comes full circle to, oh, it's for the Jews. Okay, who are the Jews? That's where it always comes to.
Yeah.
And that's why, in the end, I always get to that. And I don't like to take it there. I don't even want to mention that. I just want to get people to follow his commandments. And then through them learning and researching and reading for themselves, they'll come to the knowledge of who the people is, because some people, especially of European descent, will get kind of, how can I say, they don't like to touch on that too much. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. So I don't care to push it. To me, it doesn't matter. I know that our lives are cursed. I know this. So I don't expect for the whole world to accept that.
Right.
I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to force on someone to believe. I'm not going to push that, oh, you know, there were dark people, they were black, or I'm a descendant of Hebrew Israelites, or I don't push it, because
Right.
how I see it, I have to understand in the book of Romans that we are all engrafted into this, and that we're all Israelites. So I don't push the whole, but the only time I do push it is whenever they try to put those people over there in the land of Israel as the people,
Right.
and nothing more than the synagogue of Satan, or whenever they try to push the whole thing of us being Ham or whatever the case may be, and they try to tell me that I'm a curse or whatever. So I'll try to tell that, and I'll tell them they half right. I say I am cursed. So, but
and not a curse for the reasons that they think.
yeah, and then, and I give people biblical evidence of it. I'll give them scripture. I'll give them some verses out of the letters, the epistles, and whatnot, and I give them that to read. And most people I never hear from again.
Right. Right.
So, and so like I said, how I go about dealing with that whole, Jesus has cleaned everything. I let them think what they want. I just give them scripture, and I say the only thing that's going to change their mind is them reading it for themselves. I can't give them lip service. All I can do is try to plant that seed, and then, like Pastor Josh said, only Most High give them the ears to hear. So,
and that's and the reason I kind of went on that line of thinking, because there's a lot of saints out there that are struggling, and what Pastor says, and we know your greatest struggle is with your family. Your greatest struggle is with those close friends, and then everyone else. And it's just the fact that I like these type of dialogues, because it gives saints an opportunity to see and hear that, oh, they're going through the same things that I'm going through. I'm not alone.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing. As far as me and my brother go down here, when we first got into this, man, I mean, they were so afraid of what we were getting involved in. I mean, put it this way: you can be a Buddhist, you can be a Hindu, you can
Yep.
be in Islam, a
Yep.
Muslim, you can be a Christian, you can be any flavor of Christianity, you can be a Seventh-day Adventist, whatever the case may be. You can even you could be in this check this new religion I call Cow Dai. They take all the religions of the world, put them together, and they all worship a pyramid that has a one eye in it. But you could be all those things of the world, and if they're familiar with it, it's okay. But as soon as you say, "Oh, I just follow the book," and you don't tell them, "Oh, I don't have a religion. I just follow the book. You know, I
Right.
just follow the faith of Abraham." You know what I'm saying? I'm in the way, or I follow the faith of Abraham. It's a problem. Once you follow in the book, once you in the way, that's when it's a problem. And for my family, it was a problem. The things we would say is a problem. You know, we would let them know, hey, for Christmas, I remember the first time I handed the Bible to my mom, said to her, read Jeremiah 10. And she read it, and my sister and everybody, why are you being a Grinch? Why are you being a Grinch? You know, and my friends would tell me the same thing, but I don't care. And it got to a point where I was not even calling my family, and I was so busy just staying at home reading, and I stay home all weekend. And I would, be with Sister Rachel, my brother Greg, and brother Daryl, and whoever else. And it got to the point where I will forget that they're even there, and I remind myself I need to call my mom, basically because my immediate family is the only ones who I really try make an effort to even still talk to, simply because I try to honor my mother and my father, and I honor them by visiting them. I honor them by, hey, how you doing? You been all right? Everything been okay? And I leave it at that. But as far as, and I still drop a few snippets there and here and there, but one thing I realized that I didn't realize that I was being talked about behind my back the way I was. And someone in my family brought me to the side and said, hey, man, you might as well just shut it down, because when you leave, man, they say this, and this, and this, and this. And I'm just like, man, really? I just shut it down completely. I don't even talk about it anymore when I go around. I just shut my mouth. And if they ask me if I want something to eat or whatever the case may be, or if I want to do this or do that, and I'll let them know, no, I can't do it. Why? Oh, Sabbath day. Oh, I can't do this. Why not? Oh, well, I can't eat. That's abomination, whatever the case may be. Oh, well, hey, we're gonna plan this week. Can you come? No, I can't do it. Why? Passover. I'll be with the fam up in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, so that's the way that they know what I'm doing, and I gave them all the information. I told in the end, I just gave them Pastor Dow website. Um, they have their both all the web addresses. They know about the blog talks and whatnot. So if they ever want to know what I'm doing, I told them just check them out. So in the end, because after a while, I got tired of trying to show them myself, and in the end, I'm just like, whatever. Hey, here's the website. He has plenty of articles and videos that they can watch.
Right.
And I told them, if you want to understand what I'm involved in, this would be the best information for you to check out, because this is who I'm following.
Right.
I'm following him as he follows Christ. So
Yeah, and then we have the the dissenters out there that, because you made a point. We follow him as he follows Christ. Oh,
yeah,
you're getting caught up in a man, and you don't need to follow a man. All you need to do is hear from the Most High and read the book, and that's all you need. I'm talking about those that could even understand what we
yeah,
believe. And it's
yeah,
like, in any situation, there's always a leadership role somewhere by someone. And it's not as much as you're following that person or that title that person carries. You're following them and supporting the same things that they're doing. We've heard that. We've heard that.
But when he can preach out the book and you can go behind it and see exactly what he's saying, I mean, I
Right.
know it's truth. But also to the whole leadership deal, when I say you're trying to follow, man, well, you got to think from the time of Moses. Pastor, I mentioned this actually during Shabbat service,
Yeah.
but I was talking to the saints down here about it. I say, have you noticed? Because for a while I was like that. I'm not following no man. I couldn't bring myself to call a man a pastor. I couldn't bring myself to call anybody my teacher. I couldn't even do that for a long time. I couldn't until I met Pastor Dow. Even after meeting Pastor Dow, and like I said, everyone's in my testimony. I had a hard time with these spirits dwelling within me, this indoctrination that I had of calling him my pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to grips with that earlier this year, and I gave my testimony of it when I went to Passover. But I realized through scriptures, even Moses asked the Most High whenever he told Moses that you was gonna die, you know, as your brother did. He told him, well, hey, put the spirit that I have on someone else, give them someone to listen to. And he told him, take Joshua.
Yeah.
And the same spirit that's on you is going to be within him, and they will hearken to his voice. And Moses asked for that because he knew the people need a voice to hearken to.
Yeah, I mean, Israel proved it when they, when they begged the Most High for an actual king. So when people wanted to, it really and truly shows you.
You need a voice,
right? That people are contradictive of even their own self. They say they want to follow the Most High. However, they'll still say, well, I don't need to follow a man. But yet in history, it is proven and showed that they always wanted to follow an actual person.
Yep, you need a voice.
You need a voice. Absolutely.
And that's where I try to tell a lot of people, I don't necessarily have a problem with calling him my pastor now or whatnot. You need a voice. You have to have someone. You need a voice, and that's when I had no problem saying that Pastor Dow's my pastor, or when I read the scriptures, when I go behind what he is saying to see that it is so what he's saying. So right. I don't have an issue with it.
Right.
Well,
Brother Mitchell, I want to tell you, brother, this has been a phenomenal pleasure. It's been an opportunity. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of, wrap it up and maybe say something you'd like to share with the saints from your heart. Just Brother Mitchell, from his heart to the saints, and then we'll bring this to a close. But I do want to thank you. It's been awesome.
Okay. All right. The only thing I have to say is, we're reading the book Acts as you seen last night, and I just hope that everyone has the same mind, and everyone's on one accord, one heart, one soul. Everybody has everything common, and that all the selfishness, all the things of this is for me, mine, and that type of thought, that type of heart, that type of talk, that it has to go away. And, I truly understand how when we're so divided that we can't accomplish nothing, man. And so I hope that all the saints out there, to and fro, man, up near you, East Coast, West Coast, South, North, whatever the case may be, that everyone's hearing that everyone is realizing that. And I've realized that through being straightway and now reading the book of Acts, and I'm seeing it with my very own eyes and we're studying it to be of one accord and of one mind. And we can't have all this division that we've had in previous years or whatever because we will falter. So I really don't have anything else to say, man. Everybody just stay encouraged, and we all just stay on the same the right course. Follow this book. Let's put him first. Let's not be foolish wives. Let's be wise wives, righteous wives. So when he show up, we're ready. And I tell you what, that message that we got yesterday, man, towards the end, it got all of us. We were saying amens and hallelujahs the whole time. And when he got to the end, he was saying that, everybody put that mirror up in front of their face.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And that's what it's all about. And that's why last night y'all heard me and I was saying, sure, I'll be afraid on that great day. It's going to be a great and terrible day. So, it'll be beautiful once we caught up, though, But, you got to always stay humble, man. So, and that's what I'm praying for, man. And always look in the mirror at yourself, man. And that's what I've been doing this whole year. I realized that big time. So, because, the Most High ain't never lie. The heart of man is continuously wicked. So, yeah. That being said, man, we praise the Most High, hallelujah. And I say shalom to all the other Israelites out there. To all straightway, to you, Brother Jermaine, thank you for having me on your show, for reaching out to me. And I look forward to fellowship with you some more and speaking with you more often.
Brother, it has been a phenomenal pleasure. I'm humbled to have had you. You were an awesome guest. Hopefully, one day down the road, I can get your other half, Brother Greg, on. Quick question before I close it out: is Brother Greg who's the oldest and who's the youngest? Did you hear me?
Who do you think is the oldest?
In my opinion, you know what? Off the surface, I would say Greg's the oldest, you're the youngest, but I really think now that I'm seeing things, you're the oldest, he's the youngest.
I'm the youngest.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I had it right. My first thought was the right thought. I should have left it with that.
We get that all, but we get that a lot though. I get that I'm older a lot, so we get that a lot.
Well, but my first
But
thought that is he was older, so I kind of technically got it right. So,
yeah,
so
when we made that video last year with Pastor Dow, my beard was all bushied up and stuff.
yeah.
Everyone was like, "Oh, we like the younger one. How he mentioned the children," and they were talking about my brother,
Okay.
and so they just didn't know. So, but it's all right, it's cool. But also, I want to tell everybody, man, pray for Mother Lily Thomas, man. Keep her spirits lifted up, man. Send y'all prayers towards her, man, because that she's by herself, most of the time, and she's up here's our old widow, and she's blind, and she only gets a chance to see us every 2 weeks. So let's keep her in prayer, as this time goes on. So
definitely keep Mother Lily Thomas
yeah,
in prayer. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of The Simple Truth, i.e. Saints Speak. And the simple truth of the whole matter is that divided we can't accomplish anything, but together on one accord we can accomplish great and wonderful things. And this has been the simple truth. And as I always tell you, the simple things are oftentimes the most profound, but yet they're the most difficult to put into practice and to actually do. I want to thank Brother Mitchel and Brother Greg's back there. I saw him sneaking in and out. But
yeah.
I look forward to sharing with you more soon.